Deadpool and Wolverine just had one of the most successful weekends in the history of the MCU. We are in the midst of the multiverse saga, and Deadpool and Wolverine was not shy about leaning into that concept. Some like the nostalgia and the loose ends being tied up, while others say that it makes the stories confusing and lazy. Today on Nerd Champs, we talk about the multiverse. Let's fight! We've got two combatants with completely different opinions on this topic. Let's go ahead and bring these guys in. First and foremost, it's his first time on Nerd Champs. Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Jason is here with us today. Jason, thank you so much for being here.
Going? Hey, how's it going?
And you know him, Dan the Man, two-time Nerd Champ.
Oh yeah.
He's here once again trying to gain the Triple Crown. Let's hear it for him. All right. So Jason is going to make a declarative statement about multiverses, and then we're going to go ahead and give him 2 minutes to start. So, Jason, the floor is yours.
Multiverses are not good storytelling. They're kind of lazy. Okay, I think that multiverses are not only hurting the MCU and other comic book properties and other just properties in general, intellectual properties in general. I also think they're lazy, and it takes all stakes out of storytelling. Like, I feel like Deadpool, the Deadpool Wolverine movie that just came out, backs this up for me. I feel like they take several swipes about how the whole multiverse is just kind of, ugh. And also, like, it's impossible to explain somebody to a casual fan, explain how Iron Man is also Doctor Doom now, and it's just all it's lazy. It's lazy filmmaking, and it takes all stakes out of anything. Let's just look at the Doctor Doom thing. Tony Stark's death was one of the greatest things I've ever seen in cinematic history. Like, it is just such a great moment. And now we undo it just to have him come back as a completely different character because of the multiverse. Like, multiverse stories never work, really. I think even in the comics, like, Crisis on Infinite Earths is cool until the very end, and I feel like they dropped the ball. And I feel like all multiverse stories drop the ball, with the exception of maybe Spider-Verse, but I don't even think that works well in the actual storytelling. It's confusing to people, and I just don't believe that it is good storytelling. I think it's a cop out.
All right, Jason, bringing the heat and making a lot of good points about being anti-multiverse. All right, Jason, we're gonna go ahead and send you back to your corner. Dan, how you feeling?
I'm feeling good. Feeling strong. All right. I've got my buddy here to support me.
We're going to go ahead and give Mr. Dan Johnson the floor, and then we will go ahead and give Jason time to rebut.
All right. Multiverses as a concept are not flawed. They are not a problem. It is the execution where these things can fall apart. Item Exhibit 1, my man, Spider-Man, right there. How many just truly fantastic multiversal stories have we gotten from this one character? Spider-Man No Way Home, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. No Way Home was not just fan service. It is a class on how to do a multiverse right. The best way to have a multiverse is that it doesn't remove stakes. It doesn't make it confusing. You have to have your core version of the character, which is clearly the one that you are following and you care about, to carry you through the story. Now, there may be alternate versions of that same character, but those alternate versions have to be different enough that you may care about them as well, but you still know who your core, most important character is. So, you know, I'm older, so yes, I love the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies, but when you watch No Way Home, there is no questioning who the protagonist of that story is. It's Tom Holland Spider-Man. It's the MCU Spider-Man. He is the core of that movie, and that's how you do it. Multiverse stories work in that setting. Other examples, you might be able to guess by me, but I'm a Ninja Turtle fan. I've seen at least 2 or 3 versions of a multiversal Ninja Turtle story where whatever version you're watching starts time hopping through the comic books, the original 80s or the original early 90s cartoon, then the 2000s cartoon, and it ties it all in well. You get to revisit characters, you see interactions you never would have seen. If you do it right, it's fun.
All right. So Dan going ahead and making the argument that it's not just the multiverse itself, it's just the way sometimes multiverses are done. So, Jason, you've heard Dan's arguments there. We're going to go ahead and give you a minute to respond. Go ahead and starting right now.
Okay. You brought up No Way Home. I felt No Way Home, while it's fine on its surface to watch. I tried to watch that with people who were not initiated into the comic book world. Like people like my wife who have never read a comic book in her life. She was confused with everything it was. So that's the casual fan we're trying to grow to. I feel like also No Way Home it was fan service. There were breaks in the movie for applause in the movie theater. So when you watch it at home, it's weird because there's these weird like spaces in between, like so it's conjointed, and it does kind of change like the stakes of the movie because like we know we just go find another Aunt May out there. It takes the stakes out of the story because there's always infinite amounts of that character that you can just bring back in.
Yep.
It's a MacGuffin, if you will.
Totally. I totally hear all that for sure. So definitely. So, all right, Dan, how can you respond?
I believe as long as you keep the versions differentiated, that you will be okay. And there are a couple situations where the multiverse, I think, can always work. Number one example of this, Deadpool and Wolverine, multiverses can always work as a coda or an epilogue or like wrapping things up at the end. I think that can always be fun. It's kind of like what Crisis on Infinite Earths was to begin with. Deadpool, for 2 movies, he was kind of outside the Fox X-Men the whole time. He never interacted with any of the actual X-Men that were in those movies. The version of Colossus he had was not in any of the other X-Men movies. So you were already dealing with a multiverse. He did reference other Marvel characters in the other ones. He referenced the other company. He kind of is in this meta universe outside, but in a coda, you can bring those all together. That's kind of like what Ninja Turtles did. The other way multiverses can always be fun is in comedy. And I point to Rick and Morty. Rick and Morty is the most multiversal fun you're ever going to have because you don't have to have stakes in comedy. But you know what? Rick and Morty has pathos. There are stakes because the version of Rick that you're following was wronged by another Rick, and he's out trying to find that Rick, and it really does work because you feel for the version that you are following. Even though the other ones are almost indistinguishable, you feel for your Rick.
Dan, 10,000 points off because I was going to bring up Rick and Morty like literally right now. Like I was literally at this moment going to say Rick and Morty and Family Guy are the 2 examples of multiverses being done the right way. That's what I was going to say. So 10,000 points for stealing my thunder. You get in the bottom of the basement right now. Okay. But yeah. So
worth it to steal your thunder.
Basically, here's what I always say when I say that I don't like multiverse as a concept, and then people say, "Oh, well, how did you like No Way Home? How did you like Multiverse of Madness?" Well, the reason is because I can still appreciate good art when I see it. I mean, Willem Dafoe was virtually flawless in that film. You know what I mean? And I really do appreciate what they did with a lot of the other actors and actresses. I actually liked how they leaned into Aunt May, making her kind of the MCU's Uncle Ben. There were a lot of things about it that I could appreciate, while at the same time saying this is kind of messy. You know what I mean? And at the same time, looking at the Multiverse of Madness was the same way, man. I love seeing Patrick Stewart in a big yellow chair, but you know, at the same time, it was kind of messy. It was kind of all over the place. So So yeah, I mean, right now I'm definitely leaning Jason. Okay. But Dan, you're making a good fight here. You're making a good fight here for by choosing the idea of the concept and not saying multiverses are awesome. You all should shut up. So so you're making it close based on your argument style here. So we're gonna have a 5-minute free for all, and after that 5-minute free for all, we're going to declare our very arbitrary champion. So 5-minute free for all. Let's start it right now.
Okay, you brought up comedies, okay? Those two comedies that you brought up Deadpool and you brought up Rick and Morty. Both of those things, their main comedy dealing with multiverses is pulling the threads about how holy multiverse stories are. Like, it's kind of like holding up a mirror to it.
I think it's like Sex Panther cologne. Multiverses, 50% of the time, they work every time. So if you got a joke to tell, or if you got a story to wrap up, you can apply that multiverse like a universal bracket. You just stick this here and that there. And I mean, who wouldn't want to see Connery, James Bond interact with Craig James Bond if you could get that to happen? And you do get that to happen with these comic book style stories. You can have that happen with Ninja Turtles because it's animated. You can have the Nickelodeon CG Ninja Turtles interact with the 90s cartoon Ninja Turtles, and it's fun. And if you are into it, it's great. Now, losing normies is always a problem. Yeah. I mean, I was at a graduation party after Infinity War came out, and I was talking to one of the other dads, and he was like, I don't know what was up with that talking raccoon. I had seen a couple of those Avenger movies, and I know who Iron Man and Thor, but like, why was there a talking raccoon in the movie? So like, if you can't keep people on board with Guardians, which was like, so like, you just can't do it all to save the normies. So I think multiverses can be fun.
Well, and I think it's very interesting because typically any of these storylines that do it, they all kind of end up doing it the same way. I guess that's kind of why I don't care for it. It's always a cosmic storyline. It's always otherworldly. It's always there's always something mystical or cosmic about it that causes it to happen. And it kind of doesn't make sense. The whole idea of the multiverse is something that doesn't make sense, and then they introduce it as a way to tie up loose ends anyway. So that's kind of my thing that I've never liked about it. I've never liked how it's basically just something that happens that nobody can really explain in the universe somewhere, and then there's some kind of a little fissure or a little crack or some little thing, and then it causes some cataclysmic nonsense. It doesn't make any sense. It's never made any sense. So that's the reason I don't like it, is because they kind of all start out the same way, and then they all kind of end up doing the same thing, which is basically where they basically take the multiverse and they compound it into one universe. That's what Crisis was. That's what Secret Wars was. It really just makes it make less sense when you think about it.
No Way Home, the other Spider-Man got to go home, and
for now, but we're still in the midst of this whole thing that Doctor Strange screwed up, and it's probably coming to roost sometime soon here. That's what Secret Wars is.
Well, I'm gonna judge it on its own merit because it's Sony, and I think Sony's gonna look at what Disney's been doing lately and saying, you know what, we're gonna divorce ourselves from, like, our timeline splits off right here, and we don't want to play with you anymore.
Yeah.
You think they're going to cut loose, huh?
Yeah.
I'm not certain they're going to cut loose. I don't think they can at this point. Like, I mean, Pandora is already out of the box. I think Deadpool had the best line about multiverses ever. There's been one good multiverse story, and it's The Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
I'm not going to finish the rest of that joke because I don't know how PG I can
get. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, the thing about multiverses is, and the reason people forget the reason that it was introduced in the comic books to begin with. All right. They think that it was introduced as kind of this thing over time. No, it was basically the comic books version of the soap opera Evil Twin. That's basically what it is. It was the comic books version of, oh, junk, we got to fix this. You know what I mean? There's people that aren't in the same place at the same time. There's relationships that aren't the same. Sometimes the characters look different. Sometimes their powers are different. Sometimes their attitudes are different. We got to explain all that. Oh, we can explain that all through the multiverse. And that's what they did. And it didn't make any sense. And then basically they compounded it into one and said, this is our universe now. That's what every comic book's universe has done. And that's what they could have foreseen that in the cinematic universes and planned for it. And they didn't. That's what drives me crazy about it. But I'm off my soapbox. I'm a moderator. I need to stop talking. Anyway.
Now my favorite version can interact with your favorite version and we can both have a good time.
Yeah, we could just look over there. We could have George Reeve and we could have Brandon Routh, and they can just have coffee and talk about how awesome Superman.
It's true. We can have George Reeve, and they didn't even have to ask his family.
Yeah,
they just put him in there.
Just nuts, man. So.
You gotta read the small print when you do a superhero movie.
Yeah, that's right.
They own you.
He got the Crispin Glover deal, didn't he? That's for sure. Yeah. All right, guys. Well, we're at the 5 minutes here. So yeah, basically, to sum up, I think that good arguments have been made on both sides here. Dan didn't go full in multiverses are awesome. So he kind of led into the whole, multiverses work sometimes. I can enjoy some of the stories sometimes. Obviously, Deadpool and Wolverine is the one that we all think about. And then Jason, I think, has presented a lot of good arguments as to why the multiverses sometimes do not work. And 99.9% of the time, I believe that is the case. And that is why Jason is this week's Nerd Champ. Congratulations! What we need to know is that this universe's Jason is the Nerd Champ. The next universe's Jason might not be the Nerd Champ. Anyway, so Jason, we're going to give you 30 seconds of FaceTime, and then I'm going to close this out. Go ahead.
This was a lot of fun. I just believe that there's so many different other stories that we can do in these universes. We don't have to keep going back to the same trope of, well, it's okay because there's other people floating around in another universe. I think that there's better stories to be told, and they're just more fun that we can have without having to be like, well, look at this fan service. Pause for applause. It's just, I think you can do more, but I hope that they do. I hope that all these jokes in Deadpool was just leading up to how we're just not going to do this multiverse thing. But we just announced Robert Downey Jr. as Dr. Doom, so I think we probably are in it for the long run. But I just want to do better.
All right. Well, this has been another wonderful adventure on Nerd Champs. Thank you for sticking with us today. If you like this video, go ahead and watch the rest of our videos. We love to fight. It's a great thing. So go ahead and take a look at them. We appreciate you being with us today. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time.